Okay, picture this. I want you to close your eyes for a second, unless you're driving. Please don't close your eyes if you're driving. But imagine a world where death isn't actually...
Okay.
And I don't mean in a spiritual crossing over to the other side kind of way. I mean in a very literal, gritty, biological sense.
That is an ominous start. I'm intrigued.
It gets worse. In this world, when a person dies, their brain doesn't just shut down and decompose. Instead, the specific neural pathways, the memories, the skills, they compress.
Compress? How do you mean?
The brain physically condenses into this beautiful, glowing, colorful orb called a momentum.
Whoa, that is a vivid and, frankly, kind of horrifying image. It's like a pearl, but made of consciousness.
Exactly. It's a physical manifestation of the mind. And here is where it gets really, and where the horror, it really kicks in. In this world, someone else can take that orb, that memento, and absorb it. They can integrate it into their own biology.
Because you're not just inheriting their stuff, you're inheriting them.
Exactly. And by doing that, they gain abilities based on who that person was. We're talking about reading minds, having a photographic memory, maybe even learning a language instantly because you absorbed the orb of a trans.
So you're describing a magic system that is entirely based on a biological byproduct of death.
Yes.
It's essentially a resource economy, but the resource is the condensed brains of the dead.
Right. And you can see the immediate societal problem.
No, absolutely. It turns grief into a commodity.
Right.
A funeral isn't a goodbye anymore. It's a transaction.
Who gets grandpa's memory? Who gets his skills at carpentry?
You'd have black markets for the orbs of geniuses. You'd have murders committed just to harvest someone's specific skill set. It's a grim, predatory world.
It's terrifying. And the creator of this concept, she had it all worked out. There were notes on the Hanwavium science, how specific regions of the brain triggered specific expansions.
So she was really thinking it through.
Deeply. It wasn't just magic. It was like pseudo-neurology. It sounds like the setup for a massive best-selling sci-fi thriller, right? You can already picture the movie.
It sounds fantastic. I'm assuming we're doing a deep dive into this book today. I'm ready to read it.
Well, that's the twist, and it's a frustrating one, this story. It doesn't exist.
What do you mean it doesn't exist?
It was never written, not a single chapter, not a paragraph.
You're kidding me. All that work.
This concept comes from Diane Callahan, who is also known as the quotidian writer. She created this entire system, the biology, the magic, the glowing orbs, the rules of the economy as the very first world she ever built. But she never wrote the narrative. She fell into a trap that I think a lot of creative people, and honestly just a lot of dreamers, fall into. She spent so much time designing the physics and the history that she never got around to the characters or the plot.
I see where we're going. The story that never was.
Yeah.
This sounds like a classic case of world builder's disease.
Is that a clinical diagnosis? Because I feel like I might have it. I have notebooks full of maps and languages for stories I've never written.
In Creative Circle, it's absolutely a diagnosis. It's a very common condition. It's the sensation that you have to simulate the entire universe, down to the movement of the tectonic plates and the history of the currency, before you can let a character simply walk across a room and open a door.
It's the rabbit hole to end all rabbit. You get so obsessed with the stage that the actors never show up.
Precisely. And that is exactly the problem we are tackling today. We aren't just looking at how to build a cool world. We're looking at how to build a world that actually supports a story rather than, suffocating it.
So this is like an intervention.
In a way, yes. We're basing this deep dive on the work of Diane Callahan and her co-conspirator, Jordan Riley Swan from Story Garden Publishing. They've laid out a framework to stop you from drowning in your own imagination.
Because the goal isn't to stop building, right? The building part, that's the fun part.
No, of course not. The goal is to build smarter. There is a wonderful quote from the author Maria Devana Headley that frames our mission perfectly.
What's that?
She said, "So much of the hard part of world building isn't the building at all, but the pruning of the universe."
Pruning the universe. I love that imagery. It implies that the wild growth is already there in your head. You just have to cut it back to make it coherent.
Exactly. You're a gardener, not an architect, drawing up blueprints for a whole new reality from scratch. If you try to include everything, every crop rotation, every minor deity, every tax law, you end up with an encyclopedia, not a novel.
Right. And no one reads an encyclopedia for the emotional arc.
No, but so today we are going to explore the 3 core principles of world building that serve as that pair of pruning shears. We're going to look at setting, the distinctive element, and character conflict.
And sticking with us until the end is crucial because we have a magic trick from Jordan Riley Swan that completely changed how I think about explaining complex things.
It's a game changer.
It's a way to dump information without it feeling like a dump. But first, let's zoom all the way out. Let's talk about the stage itself, the setting.
When most people hear world building, this is what they think of: map, mountains, cities with unpronounceable names.
Guilty as charged.
But we need to look at it through a very specific almost determinist lens. Geography is destiny.
Geography is destiny. That sounds incredibly fatalistic. It sounds like we have no free will.
It is, in a way. But if you look at human history, it's also, well, it's pretty accurate. The landscape and the environment determine how a society develops. It shapes their culture, their economy, their politics, and even their technology.
So you're saying the rocks and rivers are in charge?
In a big way, yes. Humans are reactive creatures. We don't just exist in a void. We respond to the obstacles the land puts in front of us.
Okay, let's unpack that, because usually I think of geography as just the backdrop. Like, it's a story in a forest or a desert, but you're saying that geography actually writes script.
Think about it this way. If I have a massive river blocking my path, what do?
You build a bridge.
Right. Or a boat. If I need water and I'm in an arid region, I build a dam or an aqueduct. Those are physical reactions, but go deeper. If you are an island nation, isolated by rough sea, think about Great Britain historically, you probably don't need a massive standing army to defend your borders from invading infantry.
Because the ocean does that for you. It's a giant moat.
It's the best moat in the world. So you invest in a navy. Your whole military philosophy, your national identity becomes tied to the sea.
Right. Britannia.
But if you are a landlocked nation surrounded by hostile neighbors on flat plains like Poland for much of its history, it's a terrible spot. Your entire culture is likely going to revolve around military discipline, fortifications, and standing armies. The geography dictates the social structure. You can't just decide to be a naval power if you're landlocked. The land won't let you.
So it's not just pretty scenery, it's the engine of the society. The source material brings up an incredible example of this, one of my absolute favorites, the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin.
Oh, it is a masterclass in this specific principle.
Yeah.
It's one of the best examples of geology dictating sociology I've ever read.
It really is. So for those who haven't entered the stillness yet, which is the name of the continent, the world in the Broken Earth is a mess. It is constantly being ravaged by massive earthquakes and volcanic eruptions.
And not just small ones. We're talking civilization-ending events.
Right. They call these periods seasons. It's an apocalypse that happens every few centuries.
And this isn't just background flavor. This volatility is the central fact of life for everyone on the planet. The ground under your feet is your enemy.
Right. And this is where the geography is destiny part comes.
Yeah.
There are people in this world called orogenists.
Fantastic.
They have the power to influence seismic energy. They can quell earthquake. They can stop a volcano from erupting. Now, in a logical, standard superhero world, you'd think, hey, these people save us from the apocalypse. They should be the kings and queens. They should run.
That'd be the trope, yes. The powerful become the rulers. They'd be revered.
But Jemisin flips that, and she does it based on the logic of the geography. Because the geography is so terrifying and unpredictable, the ruling class, the Sanzem Empire, is obsessed with order and control.
Above all else.
Above all else. They don't view orogenies as saviors. They view them as dangerous weapons that...
Because if you can stop an earthquake, you can also start one.
Exactly. They're feared.
They are oppressed.
Yeah.
Brutally. The geography, specifically the fault line, created a necessity for control. The empire realizes that if they let these people be free, they are dangerous, but the empire needs them to stop the quakes.
That's the tension right there.
It creates this specific type of social poison, dependency mixed with fear. So they create a caste system where the most powerful beings are treated as tools. They are enslaved to maintain stability. The oppression is a direct result of the tectonic instability.
That is such a clear link. It's not just the empire's evil because we need a bad guy. It's the empire's evil because the volcano requires them.
Exactly. The rocks determine the morality. If the earth was stable, our Rajis might just be construction workers or artists. But because the earth is trying to kill everyone, Arajians become slaves.
That creates a tension that drives the whole story. It's not arbitrary. And that leads us to the next layer of setting, which is often overlooked as part of geography, technology. Right. Because technology doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's also a product of the environment and the culture.
I think we often treat tech and stories as just a setting on a dial. Like, is this medieval, modern, or sci-fi? But the sources point out that even those terms are nuanced. There's a massive difference between an industrial age and a near-future setting, even if they both have engines.
Right. Industrial implies factories, mass production, smog, the beginning of the machine replacing the hand.
A specific kind of social upheaval comes with that.
Near future might mean we still have coffee shops, but everyone has a chip in their brain instead of a smartphone. But what's fascinating is when authors play with how technology interacts with nature. We have to talk about A Psalm for the Wild, built by Becky Chambers.
A beautiful genre. This is cited as a perfect example of solar punk.
I love that term. It sounds optimistic.
It is. It's the antithesis of cyberpunk, which is usually high-tech and low-life. Solar punk is high-tech and high-nature. It's about finding a synthesis, not a concept.
So Psalm for the Wild build is set on a moon called Penga. It's technically post-industrial, but the vibe isn't Mad Max Wasteland. It's a utopia.
It is. The history there is fascinating. The backstory is that the robots gained sentience, laid down their tools in the factories, and just left.
They just walked off the job.
They walked into the wilderness to observe nature. They didn't attack, they just quit. A silent, peaceful revolution.
Which is such a great premise. And the humans, they didn't build new robots. They didn't try to force them back. They looked at that and said, okay, maybe we pushed too hard. Let's revert.
They saw it as a sign.
They went back to sustainable agrarian communities. They embraced a simpler life.
Right, but they still have high tech. That's the nuance. That's the key part of solarpunk. They just choose to live simply. You have these traveling tea monks moving through a world that feels very lush and green, but the remnants of that high-tech past are still there.
The robots are still out in the wild. They're like a protected species.
A rumor, a myth. It creates a fascinating dynamic. The setting isn't just we have spaceships or we have horses. It's a philosophical choice by the civilization to live in harmony with their geography. The technology exists, but the culture dictates how it's used.
The geography, the lush wilderness, is prioritized over the fact.
So whether it's earthquakes creating a caste system or a robot exodus creating a gardening utopia, the physical world shapes the people. But what if the world has rules that go beyond physics? What if we introduce magic?
The spectrum of the impossible. This is one of the most fun debates in world building, and honestly one where people get really tribal. We're talking hard magic versus soft magic.
It is the eternal struggle, the nerdiest of all holy.
I feel like there are two camps here. One camp says, if it doesn't have a textbook explaining the caloric cost of a fireball, it's not magic, it's just lazy writing.
Right, the accountants of fantasy.
And the other camp says, if it has a textbook, it's not magic, it's just fake science.
The poets of fantasy. And the thing is, neither is wrong. They just serve different stories.
Okay, so let's break that down. The source material breaks this down beautifully using Brandon Sanderson's laws. But let's define the poles. On one end, you have hard magic.
This is rules-based. It has clear boundaries. It functions almost like a programming language or chemistry. If you do A and B, you get C every time.
The classic example given is Full Metal Alchemy, the law of equivalent exchange. You cannot make something out of nothing. To gain something of equal value must be lost.
It's basically physics with a magical coat of paint. It's a conservation of mass and energy, but with cool, glowing circles.
Exactly. It's predictable. If you have X amount of metal, you can make a weapon of Y size. If you try to make a human, you lose a body part because the cost is too high. Cause and effect.
Brandon Sanderson is the king of this with his Mistborn series. You ingest metal, you burn it, you get a specific physical buff, steel pushes, iron poles. It's a system.
It's like a video game skill tree.
Very much so. And this brings us to Sanderson's 3 laws of magic, which the expert in our source material highlights as crucial guidelines. I want to really dig into these because I think they solve so many plot holes.
Okay, let's do it. The first law.
The first law, an author's ability to solve conflict with magic is directly proportional to how well the reader understands said magic.
Okay, translate that for me because that sounds like a math equation.
It basically means don't use magic to fix a problem if you haven't explained how the magic works first. It's the anti-cheat code rule. Imagine a heist movie. The hero is trapped in a vault, the cops are outside, and suddenly he snaps his fingers and teleports out. But you never establish that teleportation is possible or what it costs. The reader feels cheated.
It's the Deus Ex Machina. God from the machine.
Yeah.
It feels like the author wrote themselves into a corner and then used a magic eraser.
Precise. It breaks the reader's trust. But let's flip it. If you spend 10 chapters explaining that eating tin enhances your hearing, and you show the character practicing it, and you show the limits, maybe it gives them a headache.
Okay, so you establish
the rules, the cost, everything. And then the hero is at the vault and uses that enhanced hearing to crack the safe combination by listening to the tumblers.
That is...
It is satisfying because we understand the tool. We feel clever because we saw the setup. It turns the magic into a puzzle rather than a miracle.
That makes total sense. Now, the second law, limitations are greater than power. I have to be honest, this one always frustrates a bit. It feels like a creative constraint. If I'm writing a fantasy, I want my wizard to be able to call down lightning, split the sea, the whole 9 yards. Why handicap the fun part?
Because fun to watch isn't the same as compelling to read. Think about a video game. If you have the God mode cheat code on infinite health, infinite am, how long is that game actually fun?
Maybe 20 minutes if there are enough explosions. Then I get bored.
Exactly. You quit. Why? Because there's no friction. There's no challenge. Sanderson's point is that the struggle to use the magic is the story. If your wizard can just snap his fingers and fix the problem, the plot dissolves. But if that wizard has to physically ingest a specific metal, let's say steel, to push against a coin, and he's running out of steel, and the bad guy is closing in,
Now I'm worried about his inventory, not just the bet. There's a second layer of tension.
Exactly. The tension comes from the scarcity. The limitation forces the character to be clever. Superman is interesting because of kryptonite, not because he can fly.
That's a great way to put it.
If you have a magic sword that can cut through anything, the story is boring. If you have a magic sword that drains your life force every time you draw it, now you have a story. Every time the hero thinks about using it, it's a real choice with real stakes.
I love that. The cost is more interesting than the purchase. And the third law.
Expand before you add.
Go deep, not wide.
Correct. This is about depth. It's so tempting when writing a sequel to just throw in a whole new magic system to raise the stakes.
The dreaded power creep.
Yeah. Instead of giving your wizard 5 new spells in the sequel, take the one spell they have and explore a nuance we haven't seen. How does it interact with the environment? What happens if they use their fire magic underwater? What happens if they use it in a vacuum? What are the cultural implications of it?
It's about mastery. It's cooler to watch someone use one tool in 100 ways than to watch someone use 100 tools once.
Exactly. It shows creativity and respects the world you've already built. And we can't forget the Zeroth Law.
The Zeroth Law. This is the wild card.
The most important one, maybe. Err on the side of what is awesome.
Yes. The rule of cool. If it's cool, do it.
Within reason. But yes,
Yeah.
passion translates to the page. If you are genuinely excited about an idea, even if it slightly bends your other rules, that energy is infectious. The reader will likely go with you. Don't let the rules strangle the joy.
Now, that's hard magic. But what about the other side? Soft magic. The wild force of her.
This is Lord of the Rings. This is Game of Thrones, for the most part. We don't really know the mechanics of Gandalf's magic. Does he have a mana bar? Do his spells have cooldowns?
Can he run out of magic?
We don't know. He just holds up his staff and light happens.
Mm-hmm.
Or he speaks to a moth and an eagle shows up. The how is irrelevant.
And we don't care about the physics of it. We care about the feeling, the awe.
That's the key. Soft magic is mysterious. It's spiritual. It creates a sense of wonder because it is unknowable. Its purpose in the story is to evoke emotion, not to solve a puzzle.
The source mentions The Starless Sea by Aaron Morgenstern here. That book is like wandering through a dream. You're not there to analyze the physics of the magic doors. You're there to feel the vibe.
Precisely. And that distinction applies to science fiction too. In hard sci-fi, the author is interested in the engineering of the warp drive. In soft sci-fi, the author is more interested in the social impact of the warp drive.
They care about how the tech changes society, not how the microchips are soldered.
Yeah, they hand-wave the how to get to the what if.
So we have the macro setting geography and magic systems, but before we move on, there is one more layer of setting the source, the scene level, the micro.
We can get so lost in tectonic plates and magic systems that we forget the story happens in rooms, a coffee shop,
Yeah.
a lighthouse, a graveyard. These specific locations need to have what the source calls enchanting ambience.
The example given is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. It's an orphanage for magical children,
Right.
but it's specifically on a cliff overlooking the ocean. That specific location creates a feeling of isolation, of secret, wonder. It's a refuge.
If that orphanage was in a strip mall in the suburbs next to a dry cleaner, it's a totally different book.
Comedy or a tragedy, but not a fairy tale.
Exactly. The micro setting anchors the macro concepts. You need the smell of the salt spray to make the magic feel real.
Okay, so we've built the world, we have the land, the rules, the room, but how do we make the reader believe it? How do we make them buy into a world where brains turn into orbs or people eat metal? This brings us to the second principle, the distinctive element, or as the source calls it, the iceberg.
I love this concept, but I honestly like to think of it as a con game.
A con game, that doesn't sound very artistic.
It's entirely about confidence. As a writer, you are effectively lying to the reader. You are telling them this fake world is real. The iceberg theory suggests that the reader only ever sees the tip, maybe 10% of the world building you've done.
That's the stuff on.
Right. But the mass of the iceberg, the 90% underneath the water that you, the author, know about, is what gives that tip stability.
The strategy here is fascinating. You don't need to be an expert on everything. You just need to pick one thing to be the absolute master of.
Yes, pick one distinctive element. It could be the ecology, the military rank structure, the cuisine, or the molting habits of dragon. If you flesh out this one element with incredible specific detail, the reader will psychologically assume you have done that for everything else.
It earns their trust. It creates the suspension of disbelief.
Exactly. It's a brilliant shortcut. If you tell me exactly how the currency is minted, what alloys are used, how it degrades over time, and how inflation affects the price of bread,
I automatically assume you also know how the economy works, how the agriculture works, how the class system works.
you buy the whole package because the detail on the wrapper is so convincing. You trust the author's authority. You build 10% of the world with 100% depth, and the reader's imagination fills in the other 90% for you. It's the most efficient way to build a believable world.
The source gives a massive example. A Song of Ice and Fire, George R. R. Martin.
Of course. What is his distinctive element? It's not actually the dragons or the ice zombies.
It's the lineage, the dynasty.
It's the politics, the messy, complex family tree. Whose cousin, who is a bastard, who has a claim to what patch of dirt.
The heraldry. He knows the sigil of every minor house.
He draws heavily on the War of the Roses. He focuses on illegitimate children, succession laws, the specific grievances between houses that go back centuries. Because the politics feel so grounded and historically accurate, we accept the seasons lasting for years. We accept the drag.
The realism of the dynasty buys the credit for the fan.
That is such a good way to put it. If he just started with ice zombies, we might check out. But because he starts with disputes over land titles and royal marriages, we're grounded. Another example is Jonathan Strange, Mr. Norrell. The distinctive element there is the tone.
Susanna Clarke, yes.
She didn't just write a book set in the 19th century. She researched 18th and 19th century literary traditions to perfect the voice. It reads like it was written by Jane Austen or Dickens.
It has these long, winding sentences and incredibly dry, witty footnotes.
And that voice is the iceberg tip. It's so authentic it convinces us that the magic she described is just a lost piece of real English history. We believe it because the narration feels so historic.
But my favorite example from this deep dive, and this was a new one for me, is A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine. The distinctive element here is poetry.
This is a brilliant case study. Just a perfect example. Arkady Martine has a PhD in medieval Byzantine history. She used that deep knowledge to create a sci-fi empire called Texkalan.
A Byzantium-esque empire in space,
Yep.
which is already a cool pitch.
Correct. But the unique selling point, the distinctive element, isn't the spaceships or the laser gun. It's that the entire society functions on poetry.
Explain that. How does poetry run an empire?
It transmits orders. It contains encoded political messages. Public speeches are judged on their poetic meter as much as their content.
Wow.
In the book, poetry is used to incite riots and to calm crowds. It is the carrier signal for all politics and ideology. Imagine a protest song, but it actually works as a tactical weapon to control the movement of a mob.
That is wild. So if you don't know the poem, don't know the law, you're illiterate in the most important language.
Exactly. And it works because it combines two things we rarely see together: space opera and poetry. It gives the world a unique flavor. It's not just Star Wars with different names.
It has a unique selling.
For sure. And because she treats the poetry with such academic rigor, using actual poetic forms and structures, the whole world feels solid. The poetry is the anchor.
So if you're building a world, find your poetry, find your lineage, find that one thing you can obsess over and let that be the anchor for everything else.
Precisely. Be a nerd about one specific thing, and the reader will think you're a genius about everything.
Okay, we have the setting, we have the distinctive element. Now we get to the heart of the matter, the thing that actually makes us care. Segment 4, character conflict.
This is where we have to flip the script.
What do you mean by?
Well, when you are building the world, you often work macro to micro. You start with the map, then the city, then the house, the God's eye view.
The SimCity approach.
Exactly. But when you write the story, you must work micro to macro. You have to start with the character.
Because nobody reads a book just to look at a map. Well, maybe some people, but most people read to follow a person.
The character is the emotional core. They're the reader's avatar in the world. If the character doesn't care about the world, the reader won't either. But here's the key. The character's struggle must be tied specifically to that unique setting we just built.
So you can't just take a generic hero, an orphan who wants revenge, and drop them into your cool world. They have to be of the world.
Their problem has to be a problem that could only exist in this world. Let's look at the classic example. Star Wars, Luke Skywalker. Who is he?
He's a farm boy on a desert planet, a nobody from nowhere.
Socioeconomically, he is at the bottom. He's at the periphery of the galaxy. What does he want?
Adventure. He wants to get off the rock. He stares at the binary sunset and yearns for more.
And what are the world elements? The Force, the distinctive element, and the Empire, the political setting. Now think about it. If Luke just wanted to find a wife and be a successful moisture farmer.
Which is a valid life goal.
A totally valid goal. But if that were his goal, the Force and the Death Star would be incidental. They would just be background noise. Oh, the Empire blew up a planet. That's tragic. But I have a harvest to bring in.
Right. If his goal was grow the best moisture, the Empire is just an... But because he wants adventure and to be like his father, a Jedi Knight, he is on a collision course with the Pacific world.
Exactly. The world is built to challenge him specifically. The source offers 4 questions to help writers link their character to their world. And these are gold for understanding story structure.
Let's run through. Question 1. Who has the most to lose?
You want a character who is naturally under pressure from your world's structure. Look at The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. The protagonist, Rin. She is a war orphan. She lives with foster parents who are opium dealers.
Talk about a rough start. The deck is stacked against her from page 1.
Her fate, as decided by her guardians, is to be married off to an old merchant so her foster parents can make a profit. The world, the socioeconomic structure, is actively trying to crush. It's trying to sell her like property.
So her conflict isn't just with a person, it's with the system.
Yes. So she studies for the Kiju, the national test, as a desperate act of escape. Her entire motivation is a reaction to the world's oppression. She fights the world because the world is trying to consume her.
That's compelling. Question 2. What does the protagonist want specific to the world?
This means the goal shouldn't be generic, like find love or be happy. It needs a specific world flavor. In Uprooted by Naomi Novik, the protagonist, Agnieszka, wants to learn magic. Why?
Not just to be powerful, I'm guessing?
Right. It's because her valley is threatened by the wood, a corrupted magical forest that steals people. It's an active, malevolent part of the geography.
So her goal is reactive to the environmental threat. If the wood wasn't there, she wouldn't need the magic. The setting provides the antagonist.
Precisely. Her goal is to save her home from a piece of the setting. Question 3. How do the distinctive element play into that want?
This is where we bring the iceberg theory back.
We talked about the distinctive element being the iceberg. How does that specific, deeply realized part of your world hit the character person?
Let's go back to Game of Thrones, Jon Snow. What is the distinctive element we talked about?
The feudal strictures on lineage, the obsession with true-born heirs versus natural children or bastards.
And Jon is a bastard, capital B.
That label defines his entire psychological. He wants honor. He wants a place to belong. Why? Because the world tells him he has none by birth. His whole identity is shaped by that one piece of social structure.
If you were in a modern setting, being born out of wedlock wouldn't matter nearly. In Westeros, it is his defining hurdle. The distinctive element is his personal wall.
That is such a clear connect. The world creates the insecurity that drives his entire arc. Finally, question 4. What does the character need to learn or change? And the host note here is interesting. The lesson isn't always positive.
Yeah, this isn't always about a hero's journey to becoming a better person.
No, sometimes the world breaks. The example given is Gun, with occasional music by Jonathan Latham. It's sci-fi noir.
Great title, by the way.
It is. The setting is a society addicted to government-issued drugs to handle life. There are karma scores that can get you frozen in time if you drop too low. Kangaroos are genetically engineered, mob enforced. It's a weird world.
It sounds like a nightmare version of Social Credit mixed with some very strange biology.
Exactly. And the protagonist, he's a private detective. He solves the mystery, yes. But the arc is a hollow victory. He realizes that to survive in this world, to navigate its bizarre and corrupt system, he has lost a future version of himself. He succumbs to the degradation of the world.
So the world changes him, but for the worse, he becomes a product of that broken system.
Exactly. The character and the world are rising and falling together. They are intertwined. The world leaves its mark on him, and it's a scar.
This brings us to the final piece of our toolkit. We've built the setting, we've honed our distinctive element, we've connected our characters, but now, how do we explain all this cool stuff to the reader without boring them to tears? We need Jordan's magic trick.
The break it rule.
I love this rule. It is so simple and so effective. The concept is, don't explain how things work when they're going right. Show something breaking.
It is the single best way to avoid the dreaded info dump. If I sit you down and explain the mechanics of a car, engine intake, compression, combustion, exhaust, you will fall asleep.
I am already zoning out just hearing the list.
Exactly. But if we are driving down the highway at 70 miles per hour and suddenly smoke starts pouring out of the hood and the car starts shaking violently,
I am suddenly very interested in the engine. I want to know exactly what just failed.
you want to know exactly what is wrong. Is it the radiator? Is it the pistons?
Yeah.
Because the failure has immediate dramatic consequence. You intuitively understand how it should work by seeing how it's not working.
There is a perfect example of this from Jordan and Casey Norton's book, The Stone Dragon and the Moonshine Molly.
A fantastic setting. 1920s prohibition, but with dragons used as smuggling vehicles.
That's a great high concept.
Oh.
So you have this rule. Dragons in this world have soft body. They aren't naturally armored like in most fantasy.
Right.
They have to cover themselves in metal, copper, iron to protect themselves, and they molt every 3 years.
Now, the author could have just written a paragraph saying, dragons molt every 3 years and wear metal. Boring. The reader skims it. It's a textbook entry.
It's an info dump. Instead, the author puts us in the cockpit, or the saddle. The protagonist is mid-flight smuggling moonshine. Suddenly, there's a sound, a clink, then another. He looks back, and his dragon isn't just flying, it's disintegrating. The metal scales are falling off.
And this is the break it rule in action. Because the scales are falling off now when they shouldn't be. It's a year early. The character panic. He's molting early. He's naked. He's vulnerable.
In that moment of panic, the reader learns three things instantly. 1. Dragons aren't naturally armed. 2. They require maintenance and are vulnerable. 3. This character cares about them. It's not.
And you learned all of that while your heart rate was up because the system was failing. The consequence is immediate. He is forced to land in an illegal speakeasy to hide the defenseless dragon.
So the failure of the biological system forces him into the danger of the social system prohibition.
It connects everything. We learn about dragon biology, we learn about the vulnerability, and we learn about the danger of the setting all because the system failed at a critical moment.
We feel the panic of the character, so we absorb the information without realizing we're learning. Brilliant. Show don't tell, but specifically, show it breaking.
It creates instant drama and instant understanding. It's the most elegant way to handle
So, let's recap the toolkit we've unpacked today. We're pruning the universe. We're not trying to build everything, just what matters.
First, setting. Remember, geography is destiny. The land shapes the culture. Whether it's a mountain range or a fault line, let it dictate the society. And define your magic hard or soft. And stick to the rules you set for the sake of the reader's trust.
Second, the distinctive element. Iceberg. Pick one thing. Poetry, lineage, dragon scales, and know it inside out. Be a con art. That depth buys you trust and makes your world feel.
Third, character conflict. Don't just drop a character. Make them a product of the world. Make sure their specific want crashes into the specific walls your world has built. Their struggle should be impossible in any other setting.
And finally, when you need to explain it all, break some. Let the sparks fly so the reader sees the machinery. Don't give a lecture. Create a crisis.
And of course, the source suggests using tools to keep this organized. World Anvil, Campfire, Microsoft OneNote, Notion. Use whatever keeps your brain from exploding under the weight of your own creation.
But the most important advice comes back to Diane Callahan's original failure with the Memento. She built a brilliant world but never wrote her final wisdom. Write, don't just world.
The world is living. It should reshape as you write. You'll discover things about your world through your character's actions that you never could have planned. Don't be afraid to let the story change the map. If the plot needs a mountain, put a mountain there.
And to wrap this up, I want to leave you with a thought based on that break it. We talked about how showing a broken system reveals how things...
It's a powerful diagnostic tool, not just for fiction, but for reality.
So look around you. Look at the real world. What social or technological system feels like it's malfunctioning right now? Is it our communication, our supply chain, our political processes?
There's no shortage of options.
And when you look at that smoke pouring out of the hood, what does that malfunction tell you about how our society is supposed to work versus how it actually... What's the hidden machinery that's just been revealed by the failure?
That is the question that births great science, and sometimes great...
Thanks for diving deep with us. Go prune your universe. We'll see you next time.